Okay, so I quickly want to go over some of the things that we talked about today in the AP Biology class. So I'm going to go over those real quickly um, for those who were out today. First off, this is the syllabus. I think pretty much everyone stopped by to get one about the syllabus. Obviously this is AP Biology. There's my name and contact information. If you're watching this, you've obviously already figured out the website. So, right. The grading. I just want to make sure I emphasize and we have an understanding that the unit exams count for 50%. Typically in 6 weeks there are going to be, I would say on average, 2 exams. So that means that each exam is 25%, and so the quick math would definitely justify you got to be ready for those exams. Labs, you always get an additional week to write the lab. So if we complete the lab on a Wednesday, the lab report would be due the following Wednesday. We'll talk more about those two as we get there within the next week too. Want to really also talk about quizzes real quickly and homework assignments. As far as quizzes go, you can expect a quiz very often. With that being said, though the quizzes are very frequent, and we're talking like on the scale of 20 to 30 to 6 weeks in some cases, so though the quizzes are very frequent, I do drop the lowest ones, and so that does help, I think. The lowest, 2 or 3 depending on the 6 weeks. You should expect a quiz virtually every day. We don't have books yet. I hope to have books by Wednesday, but once we get the books, I suspect that you could anticipate a quiz virtually every day. If I say read pages 55 through 66 on Thursday, then on Friday you should be ready for a quiz over those. We may quiz at the beginning or the end of class. It kind of just depends how things are organized for the day. So you should always be ready for one. More about the grading and the makeup work policy. Pretty much everything is understood. Obviously you have to make up tests, quizzes. I would encourage you to make them up, even though I do I drop the lowest 1 or 2. I would always make them up because I think it helps. As far as how to excel in AP Biology, it's pretty straightforward. I think it's mostly you got to read when it's time to read outside the class, and you got to pay attention when we're inside the class. The learning how to study and the everything else, that's very important, obviously, as well. And the online resources are great. But I'm a huge proponent of we gotta read, and we also got to be working diligently outside of class studying, and then when we're in class we got to really be focusing and listening aggressively. Okay, a couple more things. What you see here, just a real brief outline of what's going on this year as far as when what is being taught. Pretty much a logical listing of events, of things that we're going to cover throughout the year. With that being said, I would really encourage everyone to make sure that they're looking at the calendar, which you can find, of course, on the website, or you focus on when important dates are. Speaking of calendar, if you came by this morning or this afternoon to pick stuff up, you would have picked up a calendar, which, of course, if you're viewing this video off the website, you've already seen, hopefully, that there's this calendar on the website. But everything here is pretty much self-explanatory. With that being said, first exam on September the 11th. Reading guides are due then. Reading guides you'll find under the assignments tab on the website. Want to make sure that you're doing that. Of course, we'll be reminding you along the way. Certainly, I would want you to be remembering, though, to get those done. And some advice would be to certainly not do that the night before. So you want to be doing those reading guides along the way, I think. I can't imagine trying to do that all leading into the evening before the exam. That would ultimately have disserviced the reason of a reading guide. The other 2 things that I passed out in class. The safety contract, which is pretty much self-explanatory. I'll let you all read that kind of on your own. Make sure you sign it and all that kind of business. The student information sheet, obviously, it's just a little something so that I can know more about you. Well, the only thing that's really ever a problem is the photograph part. I want a real photograph. Please don't draw stick figures because that ultimately doesn't help me out as much as a photograph does. I'm trying to learn everyone's face very quickly. And aside from that, we did a quick glance around the classroom today. We talked about kind of where things were on the board that is kind of far from me, the board that is far from me. I showed everyone like where the study group sign up area is and the pre-med area is and the calendar area for AP Bio. But pretty much self-explanatory, all that stuff. So rather than talking anymore about the details of paperwork, I want to give you the lesson real quickly. This is a little bit more fast-paced than in the classroom. And as a warm-up for the day, I always like to have people, well, at least here I've decided that I wanted to see people writing on the first day. So I did a power writing exercise using the words evolution and the word homeostasis. And that was really to get a good benchmark, a good baseline of where everyone is. So if I chose those two words the first day of school, that probably has a signal to everyone that that's something that I value, two words that I think are really important. So I'd want you to have those kind of running in the back of your head of, I need to be really focusing my efforts on understanding what those words mean. Okay, but for the notes for the day, the intro to biology. And these will go very quick-like, but here are those notes. The first word I want to talk about is simply the word biology. I think that's the place where you kind of just have to start. I start some classes by talking about evolution. Either really one of those two words are fair game to start off with. Biology, though, I'll start off with that one here. Biology is the scientific study of life. So it is a scientific study of life. It works to answer questions like, what are the parts of a cell? Or, how do memories form? Those both are good questions that biology would struggle to have an answer for. Now, the next word, I've already alluded to this, that I want to talk about is evolution. So, before I go any further, I want to talk a little bit of evolution. Evolution is the process that scientists suspect has been responsible for changing the diversity of life on this planet. And evolution, according to most biological texts these days, is the facilitator of that change, or at least is theorized to be the facilitator of that change. But I would want us to also know that biology, aside from being the scientific study of life, one that tries to answer questions like that, one that is predicated on evolution, I would want us to know that at the heart of it, it's more than just memorizing facts. If you ask someone that took this class 10 years ago, or 20 years ago, or 30 years ago, their recollection of the class might be that once upon a time, my responsibility when I took that class was to basically have a bunch of note cards in my head. Note cards on, for instance, jellyfishes in the phylum Cnidaria, or the beta cells of the pancreas make insulin. Those are good biological facts. But I think biology has to be, because there are so many facts, it has to be more than just simply memorizing them. Memorizing them is good, but I think it's also about connecting the facts. For instance, I think that we should have the potential at the end of the year to look at a paragraph from chapter 7, let's say, chapter over the cell membrane. And then I think we should be able to look at chapter 45, which is all about the endocrine system. I think we should be able to have a connection between the cell membrane and the endocrine system. For instance, here's one. The way that a lot of hormones work of the endocrine system is they work by attaching to proteins that are on the cell membrane. And so we have now made a connection between two chapters that are spread apart by roughly 800 pages. So I think it's all about connecting facts. Rather than just knowing all these facts about what are the hormones or what are the components of the cell membrane, I think we should be able to connect things. And then lastly today, before we stop and we have the end of our video, I think we should talk just a little bit, very briefly, about the properties of life. In this list, we could debate portions of it. We could add to the list. We could maybe even condense from this list. But what I have here is a listing from most textbooks, including yours, of the 7 properties, the 7 observations that everything that's alive happens to have. For instance, everything that's alive has order. For instance, protein digestion begins in the stomach. Or the mitochondria is the place of acetyl coenzyme A metabolism, degradation. That order basically means that there are certain processes that happen at certain spots or certain locations, and at certain times too. Now that's closely tied with the concept of regulation. If order is kind of the where and when, regulation is more of the why. Why does acetyl coenzyme A get broken down, degraded into carbon dioxide in the mitochondria? Or why is it in the stomach that pepsinogen is used to break down proteins? And of course, as we mentioned, another property has to be the closely tied evolutionary theory, so evolutionary adaptation. The idea that things that are alive may die, and that death allows the contribution or lack of contribution to the gene pool in the next generation. Energy processing, a simplified way of simply saying metabolism, a common theme in everything that's alive. A response to the environment. A good example I always use to this is I think about my dog, Tinkerbell. Little Tink barks tremendously loud, especially when someone knocks at the door. So if she hears a knock at the front door, she's barking. Seems like she's responding to her environment. Growth and development. Everything that's alive, including the most basic cell, has the potential to grow and develop. And lastly, reproduction. The ability of a species to propagate, or to be a component of the propagation of its species. And so with that, you have the first day notes and just the quick notes in the classroom. See everyone tomorrow.